I grew up hearing the old stories about the Appalachians, witch women, haints and hollers, where no living thing dared breathe. I laughed them off. That changed the night I camped in the Singing Hollow. It started like this. I'd been hiking past sundown, trying to make it back to my truck before nightfall. The trail dipped into a hollow, dark and airless, the trees pressing so tight they smothered the last of the light. That's when I heard it. A woman's voice, soft, low, humming at first, then forming words. It wasn't English. Not quite. The syllables stretched long, like old mountain hymns sung at funerals, the kind my grandmother used to whisper when she thought nobody was listening. At first I thought maybe it was a local, some hermit living out here, but the sound carried strange. It wasn't in front of me, or behind. It slid around, echoing from every direction. The locals had warned me. That hollow ain't got no birds, no crickets, no deer. Don't camp there. Nothing lives in it for a reason. But I was stubborn. I set up camp, right in the middle. That night, as I boiled water, the hymn changed. I swear to you, it changed. The words bent into something that described what I was doing. A line repeated 3 times in that broken hymn. He builds his fire. He stirs the pot. He waits for the dark. I froze. My spoon clattered against the pot. The voice paused, then hummed again, like it was waiting for me. I doused the fire and lay in my tent, wide awake. All night, the hymn wound around me. No closer, no farther, just steady. This is where things got crazier. The next day, I climbed out of the hollow as fast as I could, telling myself it was just exhaustion, an overactive imagination. But the singing didn't stop. At every rest point, I heard it. When I sat on a rock to catch my breath, he rests his bones, he wipes his brow, he thinks he's safe. By the time I got back to my truck, I was shaking. I slammed the doors shut, cranked the engine, and drove until the mountains flattened out behind me. But the hymn followed. At night in my apartment, I heard it through the vents. The words twisted to fit whatever I was doing. He turns the key. He locks the door. He prays alone. I blasted music, wore headphones, slept with the TV on. Didn't matter. The singing wove through it all. Then the footprints started. The first night I noticed damp mud tracked across the carpet, circling the bed in a perfect loop. My windows were locked, my door chained. But there they were, muddy boot prints, pacing to the rhythm of the hymn. Last night, I made the mistake of looking under the bed when the voice grew louder than ever. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone had broken in. But it wasn't a person crouched under there. It was me. My own face, pale and slack-jawed, lips moving in time with the song. And the hymn didn't come from outside anymore. It came from inside my chest, rattling my bones like an instrument. Now, even when I'm silent, I hear myself singing, and I know the hollow hasn't let me leave at all. I came to Black Elk Ridge looking for work, not ghost stories. The locals told me right off, don't touch the pale trees. They stood out against the forest like chalk lines on dark earth, smooth bark the color of bone. I laughed it off. A tree's a tree. Big mistake. I was 3 weeks behind on rent, and a logger's pay was the only thing standing between me and living out of my truck. When the foreman pointed me up the ridge with my chainsaw, I didn't ask questions. I wanted clean wood, and those pale trunks looked strong enough to burn for weeks. The first swing of the saw sank deep, but instead of sap, something black oozed out, thick and tar-like. The smell hit me like rotting meat under the summer sun. I gagged, but kept cutting. Every tree bleeds, I told myself. Then the trunk split, and I saw it. You won't believe this. A jawbone, perfectly preserved, teeth intact, pressed into the heartwood like it had grown there. Each tooth gleamed as though freshly scrubbed. I stumbled back. The saw roared in my hands, but I couldn't look away. The molars were human, not just human. They looked familiar. That night, I burned some of the wood in my stove anyway. I figured the shock had made me see things, but when I sat down to eat, a sharp sting jolted through my mouth. My front tooth wobbled under my tongue, loose as a baby's. But that's not all. By morning, 3 had fallen out. I found them on my pillow, slick with blood. I tried to laugh it off, told myself it was just stress or bad gums. But by the second night, every tooth felt like it was being tugged out with pliers. I woke choking on blood, teeth clattering across the floorboards like dice. When dawn came, I dragged myself outside for air. That's when I saw it. In the yard, where no tree had ever stood before, a sapling had sprouted overnight. Its bark was pale, smooth, almost white. Embedded in its skin, half swallowed by the wood, were my teeth, row after row, pressed into the bark like pearls. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat, my tongue pressed against empty gums. Every tooth gone, but worse than the pain was the sound. From the ridge, carried down through the mist, I heard it. The grind of bone against wood, the crack of roots splitting earth. Now pay attention to this. I went back up that afternoon, praying it was some nightmare I could undo. But as I crested the ridge, my blood froze. The pale trees weren't just trees. Their trunks bulged with shapes. Skulls, spines, ribs, faces half swallowed by bark. Every one of them looked as though it had screamed before being consumed. The wind moved through their branches, and it almost sounded like voices. That was 3 nights ago. The tree in my yard is taller now. Its roots push against the foundation of my house, spreading fast. I hear them creaking under the floorboards at night. I know what's coming. Soon I'll be standing in that ridge, part of the bone trees, my body fused with bark, my teeth grinning forever in pale wood. And the worst part, I won't be the last. I'd heard the stories since I was a kid. The Lantern Man of Devil's Backbone, an endless ridge that cut across the Appalachians, like the spine of something long dead. Folks in town said he walked the ridges at night, lantern in hand, leading the foolish in circles until dawn. Most came back, dazed and shaken. Some didn't. That was enough to make it irresistible to me. I wasn't a believer. Not really. I was a folklore major at the university, and I figured the Lantern Man was just another backwoods ghost tale designed to keep kids from wandering too far into the mountains. I wanted to document the legend, prove it had a rational explanation, and maybe even write my thesis around it. So, one October evening, I parked my old Jeep at the trailhead, packed my recorder, notebook and camera, and started the climb. The forest closed in quickly, pines whispering against each other like conspirators. The ridge was sharper than I'd imagined, a narrow path with steep drops on both sides. The wind carried sound strangely there. Sometimes I swore I heard footsteps behind me, only to turn and see nothing. At midnight, I saw it, a pinprick of yellow light bobbing up the ridge. Too steady to be a firefly, too warm to be a star. My chest tightened, but curiosity shoved me forward. I followed. The light swayed with each step, deliberate, steady. I tried to keep track of the trail, but soon realized I'd been walking in loops. A fallen log I passed once, then again. My footprints overlapped themselves in the dirt. I clenched my fists. I'm letting this get in my head. It's just someone with a lantern. That's all. Boy, was I wrong. I called out. My voice came back hollow, as if the ridge itself swallowed the sound. The lantern paused ahead, then continued. Finally, after what felt like hours, I closed the distance. I could see the figure clearly, tall, draped in a dark hood, shoulders hunched. The lantern swung at his side, except it wasn't fire inside. It was me, a tiny, screaming version of myself, thrashing against invisible walls, its face twisted in panic, its mouth opened and shut in soundless agony, pounding tiny fists against the glass. My breath hitched, and my knees nearly buckled. I shouted at him, at it, at myself, but the hooded figure only turned, slowly, and beneath the hood was my face. Not exactly. It was older, paler, skin drawn tight like parchment stretched thin. My eyes were sunken pits, but they glowed faintly, reflecting the lantern's light. I staggered back, but the ridge gave no ground. The other me stepped closer. The lantern swung between us, and I felt heat radiate from it. My skin prickled, as if I was standing too close to a bonfire. But check this out. The tiny me inside the lantern screamed louder, and then I realized its movements match mine. Every flinch, every gasp, every desperate attempt to pull away was mirrored perfectly inside the glass. I wanted to run. God, I tried, but my legs betrayed me. Each step backward just circled me closer. The ridge stretched into infinity. No beginning, no end. The lantern man raised his free hand and pressed a finger to his lips, a silent command, and the smaller me inside the lantern went quiet. That's when I understood. The ridge never let you leave, not if you'd seen him, and the lantern man wasn't a ghost at all. He was me. Thanks for listening. Now close your eyes and sleep.